Hello, what's up, guys? How are you? Gerard Fairley. Some of you know I help people get into the trucking business. Today I want to talk about the traditional passive investor that's involved in trucking. All right. There's two ways to get into trucking if you're not actually driving the truck. If you're an investor, you could be an active investor or you could be a passive investor. Let me just give you a quick breakdown. An active investor is a person who puts some money up, buys a truck, and we get them a driver. If he works through my company, we help him buy the truck, get him a driver, we do the staffing, and we generate the loads, right, for this investor's truck unit, right? And out of that weekly gross, we'll debit his account the fuel that's spent, and then we'll pay the driver. So at the end of the week, the active investor who holds a title to a truck now, right? The active investor gets what's left over. Anywhere from $500 on the low end to maybe $2,000, $2,200 on the high end, depending on what we're doing, right? Maybe a little more if you're doing car hauling, but basically $500 to $1,800, somewhere in that range. That's an active investor. The money goes up and down, right? Every week. They can be involved in the day-to-day decision-making process in conjunction with the management team. All right. Why the load so heavy? The fuel's kind of high, but they're involved somewhat. They own the truck, so you got a truck note, right? That's an active investor. Now, there are people who don't want to do that day-to-day thing. They want to just be totally passive. Passive meaning they invested some money and they're getting some kind of fixed return monthly or bi-weekly, right? Twice a month, whatever. That's a passive person, meaning they're really hands-off. They could go away, live in France somewhere for 6 months, all right? That's a passive investor. They're getting back a fixed return. They're not involved in the day-to-day activity with the driver. Hey, I can't find this location. Oh, the tire blew out. They're not involved in any of that. Revenues, expenses doesn't matter, right? They are investing a fixed sum and they're getting back a fixed return, right? Until they recoup their principal and agreed upon ROI, right? They don't hold the title. They don't own the truck. They are a pure passive investor. Now, the tradition so now I'll tell you about active investor and the passive investor. The active investor is up and down. You can make money if you have multiple trucks. If you have one truck, that's a lot that can happen, right? I try to push people to the passive side. The passive side where you get a fixed return on your investment and you can get in at a lower level. You can start at about $25,000 on the passive side. On the active side, you better have $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. We're getting a truck, driver, right? So if you're thinking about being a passive investor and you want to invest in the trucking business, the traditional route for that is you find a company, they're online. We do it too. They're online. You find us, or you find them. They will take your money and invest it in their infrastructure, or they buy a truck and manage it and give you a fixed return, right? Either way, you're getting a fixed return. That's the traditional route. It's still built around a truck and some kind of equipment and a driver and loads. Well, we're doing Amplify Logistics, my company, my team. Well, we're doing something non-traditional, the non-traditional and newer way of being a passive truck investor. I mean, you get a fixed return. So what are we doing to generate these returns and protect your principal? We're investing in the financing and the debt collection side of the logistics business. I'll give you a little brief. You've probably heard of factoring. Factoring is when a company pays in advance for the load after it's delivered, and then they get their money back later on. They're buying the accounts receivable, right? That's on the load. So what we're doing we're providing factoring and financing behind the scenes on the service side. We're helping people buy trucks, right? We're selling loans to people to help them buy equipment, the ones who want to do that. That's number one. Number two, we're buying trucks from auctions and selling them retail, right? We're not actually running a truck. We just buy it for 20, sell it for 30, all right? That's number two. Number three, we're buying accounts receivable from diesel mechanic shops, right? Diesel mechanic does a job, we'll buy that bill for 90% and then collect from the owner of the truck. Or we buy the debt, right? Mechanic shop does a job, the truck is sitting there in the yard, you didn't get paid. So we'll come and buy that debt and then collect. So what we're doing, that's number four. So what we're doing is some non-traditional things to guarantee the returns for our investors without actually having to run a truck on the road, which could break down. The driver could quit. They do. And trucks do break down, right? So we're protecting your principal and generating your return by stepping back into the service sector of logistics and trucking, not on the operational side where there's more risk. So if you want to find out more about what we're doing as a passive, if you want to find out more what we're doing as a truck company, inviting passive investors, and I welcome you to call me. My number is below. I got a link to my website that gives you more about our active investor and our passive investor programs. We do both. I like to steer people more towards the passive because it does protect your principal a lot better. It's a safer bet in the trucking game because there's no actual equipment that can break down. Let's make money.